Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm going to be talking about episode 12 of Binbogami Ga. First of all, hope you'll excuse me if my voice is a little rough this video. I've been having a scratchy throat for the last 2 days, and my voice even almost gave out on me today. But I'm going to try and get through this video anyway. Overall, this episode is a little bit hard to review simply because it's a setup video. Next episode is the season finale. Yeah, I don't know if it's been announced that there's going to be a second season yet or not. I'm really hoping for one. But anyway, the thing is that this is, as I said, mostly a setup episode, so there aren't really that many characterization payouts, I guess you could say, to look at in this episode. But the main thing that we get to see here is that it's becoming undeniable to Ichiko herself that she cares about Momiji. Now, as I've said in my previous reviews over and over, Momiji has sort of been the Obi-Wan to Ichiko here, really her mentor in a very twisted sort of way. And it really is just now sort of sinking into Ichiko that she appreciates this, that her life is better for having Momiji in it. Which, given the things that have happened, is, understandably a little bit of a shock. But Momiji does really point out very clearly why this is. That Ichiko, using her fortune for the benefit of others, has vastly enriched her own life. Before, as Momiji points out, the only person she cared about truly was Suwano. And now Ichiko unabashedly says that the only people she cares about are Suwano and Ranmaru. So really, she's doubled the number of people that she herself will admit to caring about. And it's kind of clear that she's certainly become exactly how much she cares for Momo and Bobby is very debatable. But she has certainly come to rely on them. And Ichiko obviously cares a great deal about Tama, or Fluffy, or whatever the hell they're calling it. And it's obvious that she has some genuine emotional connection to Keita and his family. She's even admitted that she's jealous of them. Momiji says about how doling out her fortune has come back to her. It actually reminds me of something that I remember reading that the Dalai Lama says a lot. And that's basically that, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember the exact quote, that the love that you give out to the world will come back to you threefold. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but fortune, love, it's really the same thing in this instance. Or at least, close enough for Jazz. So, when it really looks like Momiji might be out of her life, or so, it does hit Ichiko that she has become, in a way, reliant on Momiji's assistance and advice to become a better person. And it's really not hard to understand how she might feel a little torn by having this more gentle version of Momiji go away. Because with this version of Momiji, she can have all of those good things that Momiji brings to her life without any of the bad. But that's the thing about real life. You can't just take the good and throw away the bad from another person. Like it's a carrot or something that's gotten some mold on it. Yeah, or a piece of bread that's has a little bit of mold on it. You can't do that. People just aren't like that. So again, here we see Ichiko backsliding a little bit. She's really trying to have her cake and eat it too. And really beyond that, I don't really have much else to say about what's going on with Ichiko in this episode. Now, again, I've read all the manga that's been translated by the fans out there, so I know how this all pans out. And I know that we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff next episode, so it's definitely something I'm looking forward to. let's see. As for Momiji herself, I did think it was interesting that she does sort of say that normal Momiji really doesn't like, for lack of a better term, clean Momiji. And, you know, it is a little strange why, because really, all that she is really just a nicer version of Momiji herself. So you really have to wonder why it is that Momiji feels the need to keep this aspect of herself so hidden. And I think we might get at least a partial answer to that next week, but I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil some of the important details that I'm sure are going to come up in the season finale. One thing that I did get a kick out of was seeing Akane. That's the sort of red-haired girl who's the leader of the three chicks who hate Ichiko so much. Rallying to Ranmaru's side when it's Ichiko's talking about how Ranmaru's a girl too and all of this, and you shouldn't treat her like a guy. And she's just there off to the side, nodding along with everyone else. I will throw a little spoiler out for the manga in that it does eventually come out there that Akane is flat out in love with Ranmaru. Not really girl crush, but she does genuinely seem to be in love with her, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Let's see what else. The anime references this episode were fairly light. Our biggest one was the very obvious references to some stuff from Death Note. Now, I've read all the Death Note manga, but I never did watch the anime. Just because, while I certainly did enjoy Death Note quite a bit, I think there was really... it's something that I think I could really... I just really don't think I could sit back and go through the... There is no way in hell a teenage kid is this smart thing again. I mean, it was a fun ride when I was reading the manga, but... yeah. I think my ability to suspend my disbelief a second time while watching that just wasn't there. And of course, we also get to see Momiji turning into Cutie Honey when she's doing her little gadget of misfortune routine. Again, another very old school anime that I think a lot of the newer, younger fans out there probably might not recognize. One thing that I found very interesting in this episode was hearing Momiji read some sentences from an English textbook. Now, if you're watching this, then all likelihood, like me, you are a native speaker of English. So, to our ears, that reading was... well, I wouldn't say it was bad, but it's pretty obvious that that's somebody who is not a native speaker of English, and the sentences she sported out obviously had some rather noticeable mistakes in them. Now, I've mentioned a few times before in these reviews that I used to live in Japan, and that I actually did have a job as an assistant English teacher at a Japanese junior high school. So, let me tell you a little bit about the textbooks that they use in the Japanese schools, and a little bit about how English is actually taught in Japan. Okay, first of all, as near as I can tell, the textbooks that they use, and there are loads of them, textbook salesmen showing up at my school was just endless textbook salesmen. But anyway, from what I understand, they're usually written by college professors of English, which might sound all well and good until you stop and realize, if you're a textbook publishing company, are you actually going to go out and hire the guy that teaches English at Harvard to write your textbook for you? Well, no, probably not. That guy's probably really, really expensive. So, now, again, this is just the impression that I got, that I have the feeling that the professors they get to do these are professors from the middle to lower level colleges. I mean, the textbooks aren't terrible, but looking through these as a native speaker of English, I saw more than my share of no, that's wrong, all the way, and to just, well, technically there's nothing wrong with that sentence, it just sounds very strange. Or instances of, well, you could say that, but that sounds much more like British English to me than it does to American English. Now, please understand here, I'm not knocking British English in any way, shape, or form. The official stance on this for when it comes to teaching people English who are not native speakers is that both British English, or as I usually prefer to call it, Commonwealth English, and American English, or North American English, as might be more accurate, are equal. Now, I'm sure that folks who live in other English-speaking countries might feel differently about that, but come on, guys, there's really nothing to be gained by taking, sniping at each other. There's nothing to be gained by sniping at the quirks of the various dialects of English. They're all equally good. Okay, so let's not get that going on in the comments. And that's actually understandable. It would stand to reason that some of these professors probably may have studied English outside of North America. For example, just to kind of give you a relevant example from my life now teaching English in South Korea, one of the teachers I work with, she lived in Australia for 2 years. Now, she doesn't really seem to have any sort of Australian accent when she speaks English, but, obviously, occasionally some of the vocabulary that differs between Australian English and American English will pop up when we're doing lessons and things like that. But anyway, like I said, these Japanese textbooks do have their share of stuff that's just flat out wrong and things that just simply do not sound right to the ear of someone who is a native speaker of English. And you looking at it, it's like, they probably could have saved themselves so much, so many errors if they'd shown this stuff to even one native speaker of English. But again, textbooks are made to make book publishers a profit, and us foreign folk who work overseas do tend to like to be paid for our services. So, and that factored in with the sheer number of people who are going to see those textbooks, who are actually going to understand English well enough to catch these mistakes, well, sorry folks, that's going to be pretty darn minuscule. Basically, at the end of the day, the textbook companies don't really care if there are some mistakes in their books. And honestly, a lot of it also has to do with the way that English is taught in Japanese schools, and that is with the heavy emphasis on just flat out memorization. Seriously, the kids will just sit there and just repeat the same words over and over again. And I've helped administer these, the English proficiency tests are really just spouting off those lines you said in class 100 times at the appropriate moments. Really, that's what it is. And, well, folks, after having a job doing that for 2 years and spending another 8 months in Japan at a Japanese university as an exchange student, well, let's just say that I wasn't terribly surprised that despite there being at least 6 years of English for every school kid in Japan who graduates high school, that the percentage of Japanese people who can communicate even moderately in English is really, really small. Yeah, seriously, no surprise at all. Heck, I couldn't blame the kids for hating English. If I'd learned just about anything in school that way, I'd hate it too. Boy, I think we went rather off topic there, but I think that kind of gives you some insight as to how things really do work in Japan. The version of Japan that we see in anime and manga is honestly about as accurate a representation of Japan as American TV is an accurate representation of America. just stop and think about that for a little while. And frankly, I think that's pretty much true for any nation when it comes to its television. TV is not really meant to reflect reality. TV is meant to, well, basically, it's to make money and to keep people entertained. And honestly, people sitting around, worrying about how they're going to pay the gas bill or eating too much at dinner does not make for great entertainment. But anyway, I think I've rambled enough on that subject. Before I wrap this up, there was one more thing that I did want to talk about that genuinely did bother me this episode. Maybe I'm maybe I'm being a little overly sensitive here. Excuse me. But the whole thing with Bobby saying in English, "Yes, we can." Again, this really does sort of touch on a lot of the varying from unfortunate to horrifying way I've seen that folks react to black people over here in East Asia. I've seen very similar things here in South Korea to what I've seen in Japan. And one of them that really gets to me is that, and I've seen this again in both Korea and Japan, if you show people a picture of a black person, they'll immediately start saying the name of, well, nowadays they just start saying Obama, Obama. It's like, even if it's not a picture of President Obama, or apart from being a black guy who looks nothing like him. Seriously, I had a lesson I did it about 2 months ago. It had a picture of Eddie Murphy in it. And I show it, and of course, Obama, Obama. Oh, jeez. Now, I work in an elementary school, so I have to cut the kids that I work with a little bit of slack. But the sad thing is, adults do this too. I was talking with another foreign fellow who was telling me about a friend here of his who's a black guy. And this guy, he's about 5'8" and weighs pretty close to around 300 pounds. So he's a big dude, and I don't mean that in football player big. I mean he's genuinely, to put it bluntly, a fat guy. And one of this fellow's Korean friends said to him one day, "You know what? You look like Will Smith." The guy said to his Korean friend, "I wish. You're only saying that because Will Smith is your favorite black person." And sadly, folks, that's not the first time I've heard that variations of that story from other black folks in Korea and Japan. And the thing is, as I've said before, people in those countries, like here in Korea and Japan, black people are just something that they only ever really see on TV or in movies, or very occasionally walking down the street in the big cities. Most people in Korea and Japan have never even spoken to a black person. So with that being the case, you have to kind of give them a little bit of a break on just on the way they react. But it's still really disturbing and sometimes very infuriating just the way they sort of seem to not register that black people are human beings the same as everyone else. I mean, I think I've mentioned this in my previous videos that I've heard stories about folks coming up to black folks in Korea and Japan and literally start rubbing their skin to see if the color is going to come off. And I swear to God, I am not making that up. So seeing what's going on here with Bobby and them making the Obama joke, well, okay, I won't lie, it was kind of a humorous moment, but maybe I'm just thinking about it too much, but there were just some undertones to it that maybe exist only in my own mind that made me somewhat uncomfortable with that joke. Now, please let me be perfectly clear that I'm not accusing the folks that made the anime of racism. As I've said in my previous video where I talked about black folks in Japan, I consider an accusation of racism to be an extraordinarily damning accusation against a person's character. And I don't think that anyone in the making of Binbogami Ga, in terms of the anime or the manga or anything, is any way, shape, or form genuinely racist against black people. It's just, as I've said, Japan is a culture where things that we might consider of questionable taste in regards to black people just don't hit people's radar. And if you don't believe me, then go Google a little something called Little Black Sambo and make your own judgments as to that. Anyway, folks, I think I've rambled on enough here, so let's wrap this up. Overall, I thought, like I said, this is a little bit of a hard episode to judge since there's so much setup, but I'm definitely looking forward to the season finale next week. I am so hoping for another season of this show. It's great. It's been a long time since I had as much fun watching an anime show as I have watching Binbogami Ga. So, with that said, let's call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Oh yes, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And until next time, take care and have a good one.